Hi, welcome to episode 57 of Fresh Air at 5, the podcast. Well, it's you're listening to the beginning of a week, and it was a distracted week because there was a lot going on in my space, but I bring you some reflections on some podcasts, starting off with Amber Harper, George Koros. We've got Craig Kemp, going to toss in there Astro Stevenson, Foz Mendoza, looking at Tim Cavey and Champav to wrap the week up. So take a listen, be challenged, and be present where you are right now. What are you doing right now? Are you sitting down with a cup of coffee? I don't know. Is this that good that you can just sit down with a cup of coffee? Maybe you are. Maybe, Cammie, you're sitting down with a cup of coffee. But whatever you're doing, thanks for listening. I appreciate it. Tell some friends about this podcast and the crazy way that Carpenter shares content. All right, without further ado, here we go.
I'm Amber Harper from the Burned In Teacher Podcast and a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to Fresh Air at 5, the podcast. I'm your host, Brian Carpenter. Fresh Air at 5 is my regular attempt to exercise by walking about my neighborhood to take in podcast content, then reflect in an unedited video, which I finally post to my Twitter channel. This podcast will be a regular collection of the audio from these selfie videos. You can follow me on Twitter at FreshAirAtFive or check out my website, briancarpenter.com, for other content I have created and collected. Hey PLN, it is Sunday, January 23, 2022. This morning I'm out here for Fresh Air at 5, not listening to podcasts, but out enjoying nature. My family and some friends, we came up to Manning Park, Provincial Park here in British Columbia for the weekend. Yesterday we went tobogganing and skating. Today and last night we did a night snowshoe under the stars. It was spectacular and beautiful. And this morning we are out for a snowshoe before we have to head home. So it is quite beautiful and quite awesome. And I just thought I'd share a little bit where I am. Okay, I'm gonna review an app. There's an app called the Photo Scavenger Hunt, and it's by Jocko. I don't know all the complete details, but I found it yesterday, or earlier this week, and my kids and I and our family, friends, and everybody, we went out and did a photo scavenger hunt yesterday. So this scavenger hunt, you create a list, you give them a QR code for your list. They have to have the app on their device, but then once that's said, they don't even need internet or Wi-Fi in order to be able to create it. Then they export it, comes out as a grid of all the things, and they can then airdrop it back to you if you're using iOS. So it was fantastic. I'm gonna do a full review of that app because I think it's something I can use in my classroom in the future. Good reviews from the people that use it here. I think there's positive and opportunity in the classroom. All right, happy Sunday. We'll talk to you. See you tomorrow morning on the street. Listen to the podcast. Bye-bye. Hey, PLN Monday, January 24, 2022. This morning for Fresh Air at 5, I woke to the fog. It is thick fog out here, but it's above zero. And from where I was on the weekend, where it was minus and below zero, which was absolutely beautiful up in the mountains at Manning Park, it's okay. It's all good. I don't mind the fog. It's kind of eerie, but it's very peaceful and calming as well. So, yes, this morning, Fresh Air at 5 is fresh and humid. There's humidity in the air, and I'm enjoying my walk this morning. Big part of enjoying my walk this morning is because this fits into that whole work-life balance issue that all of us face, and how do we deal with that balance. And this morning on episode 125 of the Burned In Teacher podcast, Amber Harper brings us getting real about the work-life balance and how she brings to us, talks about how that struggle between work and life being family life, which we typically think of, is not possible either, that we can't just do one or the other, but we have to do some other things. And Amber, you shared with us Blinkist book that you have taken in by John McNabb, I believe. Maybe I got it wrong, but so you'll have to go get his name out of the podcast. So go listen to the podcast, and you bring us some 7 pillars of that need to be attended to in order to achieve and get through not work-life balance, but work-life harmony. Those being work and life. We have our personal, we have our physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual. And I really like to have and see the breadth of these things. I was exposed to this concept of not one or the other, but balance and harmony by listening to Sarah Johnson talk on Teachers on Fire episode 34 back a number of years ago, and I've read her book, Balance Like a Pirate, where she talks about professional, personal, positional, and passion. Big and important. Thanks so much, Amber. Bye. One more thing for January 24th, carrying on my thoughts, because, I got to the last segment and end of the last segment, I'm like, oh, no, I'm not done talking. But how listening to episode 125 of the Burned In Teacher podcast with Amber Harper, she's talking about balance. I was talking about the book that I had read back in 2019 that has made a significant change in the trajectory and happiness that I have in my life. And that would be The Balance Like a Pirate by Sarah Johnson, Jessica Cabine, and Jessica Johnson, and how they talk about the need for harmony in these 4 areas. And just like any other kind of balance or harmony, we need to rely on other parts at different times, and we have to give 100% of our energy at a moment to a certain thing, but we have to come back to a whole me. Walking in the morning is so important for that, because it helps me clear my head, get some fresh air, get some physical activity in, and I'm doing this for me. My wife, she knows that I'm doing this for me, and that makes a difference for her, because I'm a happier person because of that. All right, we're going to talk to you guys later. Got another podcast to catch up and listen to here. Not catch up to, but just listen to, because that's what I do. And thanks so much. What are you listening to these days? Let me know. Share what you're listening to. Okay, bye. One more thing for January 24. As I'm listening here now, I listen to Mindset Monday, because that's part of my Monday morning and early week routine. Listen to podcasts. George Couros brings us, from the Innovator's Mindset, his short podcast series called Mindset Monday, where he digs into his mind and his things that are going on for him and how he shares from himself personally and professionally. And George, thanks so much for this morning. And the question right out of the gates, where are you now? Was very powerful for me, because that takes me to my one word 2022, which is presence. And I decided that right at the end of last year. And I decided that I needed to be more engaged fully in what I'm doing. I'm pretty good at that, but my mind can wander. Like I'm in the middle of doing like report cards, for example, and my mind wanders to spring fishing in the interior of BC. Things like that. That doesn't help me serve my students when I'm writing report cards. And you talk about being present and pushing away distractions. And I haven't watched The Last Dance yet, but I need to put that on my list of things to watch. I'm not a big basketball fan, but I think it's not about basketball with The Last Dance. I think it's more about being present and learning from this elite athlete and his way of thinking and what has been shared about him. So I'm going to take a watch of that, George. Start doing that later this weekend. Yes, but being right here, right now, is me walking in the fog. It's me breathing in the humid, fresh air. It's me taking in what I'm hearing and listening to right now, which is your voice and your message about being present right now. And I have been able to do that because that's something that is important to me to do. Well, and not get run over by a truck just like I almost did. No, it wasn't even close. So yeah, that's about all. Thanks, George. Appreciate it. Take a listen to Mindset Monday. Bye. The last thing for January 24th, 2022, as I'm out here walking right now, I can feel the humidity in the air as it hits the cheeks of my face, the fine mist from the fog that is collecting on my beard, and the cool in my nose. And that's about being present. And Mindset Monday with George Koros that I just listened to, he talked about being present right now, fully where you are. And that's my one word for 2022, as I just said. But it is about being right here, right now. I think I like the fog in the mornings because it's not so dark, but there is like this presence around me of the air and the nature of the sky that's all around me, and it is peaceful to me. So that's something that I think I like. What else is going on right now? I can feel the cool of the air on my hand as I'm holding my phone and enjoying the process of talking to you through my video camera that you're going to see later on Twitter. And Mel A from Colombia and others, glad to have you listen, and Cami as well from Alberta. And so reflecting more on Mindset Monday, episode 4 of season 2, as George talked about. He talked about being completely present in the moment that you're at and what you're doing right there. Take a look on Prime Video. There's a movie about a young man from Canada. He's called The Alpinist, and it's about alpinism and about climbing mountains. And why do people climb mountains? Why do people do things that are hard like this? Well, relating it back to this right now, it's about being present and fully immersed in the moment that you're doing something. If you get distracted when you're climbing mountains, it can turn out badly. It can even get really bad if you're a free solo guy and you're climbing mountains without a rope. So you got to be fully engaged in what you're doing. So take a watch of that. That's my little nugget of sharing that I want to do a bit more. And where are you right now? What are you doing? Thanks so much. Bye. Hey PLN, it is January 25, 2022, and out for Fresh Air at 5 this morning. I didn't get out for my morning walk this morning, but I did get out for a drive, and I've listened to Shooks and Gifts, season 5, episode 9 with Jen. And Jen, you bring a whole lot of joy and magic in this episode. Everything from helping, and a volunteer opportunity where you can help people with visual impairments through a website and an app, as well as treats.com, which I'm going to check out to alleviate boredom. And also, I like that Air Sketch app that you shared because it provides a way for me to get my stuff from my iPad to my PC to my screen. That's been a difficulty for me to do. Air server's not working functionally in my school because of networking issues, I think, other things like that. So that's an opportunity to get my iPad onto the screen so I can see it there. This morning I'm meeting with Tim Cavey and Tim Stevenson. They're right in there. We're having an Edu Podcasters breakfast. I'm going to be chatting about some tech and life and how we're making a difference in the world. So stay tuned. I'll probably put a report really quick after, or maybe with them, I'm not sure. But here we go, going in for coffee with the boys. Talk to you soon. Have a great day. Hey PLN, January 27, 2022. It's Thursday afternoon and I'm out delivering papers for my daughter and doing part of her route and helping her out. She's got an injury, so she's not feeling great. She's recovering, so she's going to do a bit of papers, but I'm out doing them. So I'm getting podcasts listening in and a walk, which, dudes, I have had a hard time getting in this week. Reasons? Too many hours working this week with report cards and term end and semester end and all the stuff that goes along with the semester wrapping up. And I have worked really hard. And you know, I woke up this morning actually exhausted. I woke up tired. When you're waking up tired, you know you're putting it in. And there's been very good things. Lots of report card writing, assigning marks and marking work and communicating with students and supporting students and all manner of goodness. But you get tired. I've got yearbook that's in my head right now. I've got a newsletter to publish and produce for school. All the content's been emailed to me, but I got to put it together. So that's happening. I'm not having my students do it this month because, well, we got to get working on yearbook. So there's that. All right, I'm not complaining. I'm super happy, but you know what? I've missed getting out in the morning for my morning walk. Wednesday morning was icy out, so I'm glad I held off on that for safety reasons. Tuesday morning, I met Tim Stevenson and Tim Cavey for breakfast, and we had breakfast at Tim Hortons. I'm going to talk about that podcast recording in a moment, and it's been a good week. It's just been a really, really full week. So this afternoon, first podcast I listened to was Ignite EdTech podcast with Craig Kemp out of Singapore. And Craig, awesome to hear your voice again. Happy New Year to you. I have missed, if you've had any other episodes, missed those, but maybe this is the first one that you've published this year. You had on guest Fonz Mendoza, and Fonz, good to hear your voice, hear a little bit more about your story. And you know what? I can relate to that struggle about building relationships at the beginning of a tech coaching role. I had the same challenge. Take a listen to episode 77, Ignite EdTech podcast. Hey, Fonz. Hey, Craig. Take care. Talk to you soon. Bye. One last thing for Thursday, January 27, 2022. Like I just promised, I was going to listen to Teachers on Fire, episode 215, as Tim brings us a conversation at a coffee shop, Tim Hortons here in British Columbia. And we met, and it was Tim Stevenson, Tim Cavey, and myself that met for coffee on Tuesday morning and recorded in the Tim Hortons at the table with the room noise and all that stuff that goes along with it. And we had a fantastic, in my opinion, conversation about life and learning and education and about how we're feeling fired up right now. If you need some encouragement, I'd encourage you to take a listen. I was so encouraged. That made for a long day on Tuesday, but so important to be able to connect and bring some joy. And thank you guys for the time that we get to spend together, and we get to share that time with all the other people out there. So friends, listeners, take a listen, and go take a listen to Teachers on Fire, episode 215. So yeah, there's lots of content that we talked about in there. Lots of things that that are going on. And the photo scavenger hunt app is something I am now crazy excited about. So I gotta go and make a tutorial so I can share this bit of tech with people and people in my district and friends around the world. So let's get onto this thing and support this guy, Jocko Kenta, and his app that he has made. All right, that's it. I'm huffing and puffing. Papers are done. I'm about to get home, and then I can slow down. All right, have a fabulous day, everybody. We will see you in the morning. Okay, bye. Hey, PLN, is January 28, 2022, Friday. We made it. Okay, I actually cheered last night when I finished up my report cards because I'd spent a long time finishing up stuff so I can finish up report cards this week for my students. And the technical part of entering the grades into MyEdBC, and it was finished last night. So there was a big cheer. Other things you might have heard me say yesterday, that I'm working on the yearbook and newsletter and teaching yesterday, and the work that goes on in doing that. I like to talk, and that became very evident on Tuesday morning when I met with Tim and Tim for podcaster breakfast and coffee and chat. And you can listen to that on Teachers on Fire, episode 215. I like to talk. I enjoy talking. I enjoy telling stories. And that takes me to what I heard today on the FAAF show, episode 2 Nope, not 200. You guys aren't at 200 yet. Episode 104, as they bring us honoring oral content in your classroom. Not exactly the title, but the whole point is, how do we value and honor oral content and oral tradition and storytelling with voice in our classroom space? It was a number of years ago, I went to a Pro D talking about the development of literacy and how little ones like toddlers, they begin to learn to speak, but then they learn to be creative in things like that and tell stories and things, and they're just, learning to talk. But then they hit school and they are hit with this code called the alphabet, and how once that code and written word is introduced into their space, it really slows down their creativity, possibly, and their oral communication. So I think that it's all together. And I've got one more thing to say, so hang on. One more thing for January 28, 2022. Continuing my thoughts on the reflection that I'm doing on the FAAF show, episode 104, honoring oral storytelling in the classroom, has to do with, I was talking about how, as soon as language like written communication is introduced to little ones, that changes their possible level of engagement with coloring and about that creativity. And we watch the creativity curve. If we didn't do anything about it from the way that I grew up with education, watch it go from really, really high in kindergarten and drop off pretty steep as we get into elementary and move into secondary and graduate, that it's all about written communication and the ability to read and write about that communication. I think that that's actually a big, big thing. English is important, and it's super important that we understand how to read and comprehend written word. Why is that? I'm going to throw out there this. This is my thought, just as I'm walking along here rambling about why that might be. Is it because we can nicely put it on paper, we can transport it around, and we can mark it up with a pen and give feedback on the paper? Is that why maybe written communication is so much more appreciated? But what happens when we grow up and we're actually out there on the job? Do we hand someone a 10-page document, or do we get up and we deliver that as a speech or as a communication to engage our community? How do we do that? So we have this problem that we get out of high school, but we don't know how to talk in public. We don't know how to talk and speak because we've written it all down. Okay, so I think that it's important that we push our students into these spaces of oral communication. I've got some work to do. FAAF, sounds like you guys do too. Have a happy Friday, y'all. Bye-bye. Okay, the last thing. This is the last thing I'm going to say on Friday, January 28, 2022. It's still banging around in my head because I think it's so important that we think about how we teach oral communication and what do we do with that. I said in the last segment there that I think it has to do with being able to package and transport this ability to communicate on paper so that I don't have to listen to it, but I can see it and read it. And is it about packaging? If it's about packaging, how can we package oral storytelling? How can we collect it? Back in my early days, we would have, a cassette tape and a microphone, and we could record. And cassette tapes were everywhere. We all had them. We had them in our vehicles. I remember listening to sermon messages from our pastor on cassette tapes. So if you were away, you could get the sermon and you could listen to it so that you're staying current with what's going on in the church, as the pastor's preaching on a Sunday. So how do we package these things to transport them and be able to move them around? Well, today with our digital technology that we have a significantly improved ability to transport audio and oral than we did before. Students can use like a microphone in a Google Chrome browser, and there's an app called, there's the voice typing apps, but there's also an app called like Mote that can allow you to record your voice in a short snippet. That's like 30 seconds long for students, which is a long time sometimes. Or you could use something like Flipgrid to record your voice and have that be packaged and movable and move it around. Other things like just using your webcam and having the students talk and be able to see themselves like I'm doing right now. Like how good could that be in the classroom? Do we want to be looking at our students all the time? That's the thing. Okay, so much to think about. Take care. Bye. As my one word for 2021 is appreciate, I appreciate you giving me a listen as I've created this podcast experience for you. It's a unique Blinkist or Coles Notes version of the content I take in, like a highlight reel, so that you can hopefully find other interesting podcasts you may not have considered before. I've recorded the specific podcast episodes in the show notes for your learning convenience. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming episodes. And if you enjoy this podcast and its format, share it with someone else. Tweet about your experience or give it a review on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts. Fresh Air at 5 can also be found on Voice Ed Radio. Your voice is right here, and on the Education Podcast Network, Podcasts for Educators, Podcasts by Educators. I hope you have a fantastic day and get some fresh air before the day is out, and take care of yourself because you're worth it.